Hey everybody, I'm Patrick and this is Rocky Mountain Style. If this is your first time, welcome, and if not, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about two of my favorite mock toes, the Red Wing 1907, also known as the Red Wing Classic 6-inch mock. The 1907 designation means it's in copper rough and tough leather, of course. And we're going to talk about the White's Boots Perry 6-inch, not to be confused with the Perry Select, which is a little pricier. So these two boots, both made in America, and I think represent a great value, great style, great look from companies with great heritage. So which one's better, and are they actually the two best mock toe boots you can buy for around $350? Stick around and find out. Red Wing is a family-owned business dating back to 1905, starting in Red Wing, Minnesota, which of course is where the company gets its name. They came out with the 877 mock toe in 1952, which I'm not exactly sure was the first mock toe with a wedge style sole, but it was definitely what popularized that style with the working crowd. In 1987, Red Wing bought the SB Foot Tanning Company, and so that way they've, I guess, at least to this level, vertically integrated themselves to be able to make shoes and boots in-house with components and leather. In 2007, Red Wing launched the Red Wing Heritage offshoot after a successful lifestyle partnership with J. Crew, believe it or not. According to the White's Boots website, White started pre-Civil War by somebody named Edward White in Connecticut. Just a few years later, in 1880, they moved the company to the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia, made boots there for a while, and then moved out west starting around 1900 into Idaho, and then on into Spokane, Washington in 1910, where they still are operated. Something interesting about White's is that for all but a couple of years of their 180 some odd year history, they've been run by a bootmaker, someone who's actually, hand lasted boots and nailed boots together, which is kind of a neat claim to fame, I would say. The Red Wing 1907 is a $329.99 boot. This color, copper rough and tough, or just copper sometimes as you'll see it, is my favorite and is what makes this the 1907. However, this 6-inch classic mock does come in several different interesting colors and leathers. You have this Alpine Portage, this Black Cherry, which is a new one. Really, really intriguing. I think that's a really cool color. We just go through some of them here. Brown, which is the 875. Also, I think you'll hear that called Oro Legacy. Yeah, that's the interesting thing. Sometimes they call their leathers different. This is called Briar Oil Slick Leather, Hawthorne Abilene, Black Prairie. There's the Black Cherry again, Oro Russet, and then also there's that Alpine Portage. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the Copper Rough and Tough. So at least 8 leathers, and they do other special editions from time to time, so you can probably find different leathers as well. For the White's Perry boot, it's $325, so about $5 less. I think if you're in the market for either one of these boots, that $5 is likely not to make a difference. So one thing I will mention while we're talking about price too is the fact that there's a White's Perry Select, which is $390, means I specifically excluded boots in that higher 300 range from consideration. That will be more apparent why I don't mention certain things later in the video. So something like the Grant Stone Brass boot at $380 is not considered a competitor to these two boots, or any other sort of mock toe from Truman or those kinds of companies. But okay, so back to the White's Perry 325 Brown Distress. I actually almost bought this, but given that it's so close to the Copper Rough and Tough, I decided not to. The second leather is this black leather, which ends up looking pretty similar to the Red Wing. And then what I got, which is Red Dog. So Red Dog leather is brown, but you can see some hints of auburn red, as you'd expect by the name Red Dog. So a very nice color, looks extremely great in person, and I'm very happy with my selection. I'm glad I did not go with the Brown Distress, so that way I can have a little more variety. Okay, let's talk about fit a little bit. The Red Wing uses what they call the 45 last, which says here that it is created so that you can have removable footbeds. So if you don't like the one that comes with it, you can swap your own in, and less toe spring than the number 23 last. I don't know enough about Red Wing lasts to be able to decipher that, but there you go. So I have this in a 10D, which was the correct size for me. I went into the Red Wing store and got sized on the Brannock device. The guy had me try a 9.5 first, but I knew that wasn't going to work, and yeah, it was quite a bit too tight. For the White's boot, they use what's called the 1972 last, or the Archie's 1972. So it's a iteration of a previous last, as you can see here, for a flatter arch. But this seems to be, their go-to mock toe last. I also have this in a 10D. Did not get size for this, but it indeed is the right size as well, since I wear 10D in just about everything. Important to mention, both companies do offer D and EE widths in both boots. And my overall impression on the fit is that they're extremely similar. The heel was uncomfortable on both at first. I found the heel to be a little flat, and so there was a lot of pressure on the curved part of my heel, pushing against the hard heel counter in the back. But with enough wear, both of them did loosen up a little bit back there, so they're both all day wearable. I'm not sure I'd want to walk 15, 20 miles in one of these, at least not yet, but they're both plenty wearable for a full day. Both have plenty of room in the toe box, definitely not an issue. Okay, now I want to go over the similarities and differences, starting with the similarities. So some of these are going to be readily apparent, and so I'll just breeze over them. But of course, the shape, the overall silhouette of these boots is very similar. The purpose, both original purpose and current intended purpose for fashion wear. The feel of these boots is extremely similar. The weight's very similar. From what I can tell, the quality is extremely similar. And then, of course, the company heritage. Both being American-made companies that have over 100 years of heritage. So those are the main similarities. The differences, a lot of these have to do with construction and other choices, but the Red Wing uses a split reverse storm welt, whereas the White's Perry uses a standard Goodyear welt. I don't necessarily have a preference, just for my office and home wear, but yeah, there you go. Red Wing uses their own traction tread outsole, whereas the White uses the ubiquitous Vibram Christie outsole. The height is a little bit different. You can see in these pictures the White's is slightly taller. They do use a different footbed. White's uses an Ortholite footbed that is just a textile on top, whereas the Red Wing uses their footbed has a thin leather lining. The White's is a little bit thicker as well, a little cushier. The gusset height for the tongue on the Red Wing is a little bit higher. So if that's something that you care about as far as perceived water resistance, there is that. And then, of course, the difference in the eyelets and speed hooks. The White's boot has 4 eyelets, then 2 speed hooks, then 1 more eyelet at the top. At first, that was a little bit clunky for me. This is the first boot I've had like that, but I actually like it now. And the Red Wing, of course, has the standard 7 eyelet setup that we are all used to. My preference for that setup is having the 2 speed hooks, so I do like the Whites better in that regard. Okay, we've made it to the end. I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video and stick it out with me. So which boot do I prefer? To be honest, I think I prefer the Red Wing, and that goes mostly down to the fact that the copper rough and tough leather, as it ages and how it looks in person, how it goes with denim, just the feel it gives me when I wear it, is just a little bit better than those alternatives for the Whites. So copper rough and tough, maybe my favorite leather between that and natural chrome excel. The White's boot is great, however, and if you were giving the Red Wing a 10 out of 10, the Whites would be like a 9.7 or something like that in my mind. They're both just very good boots. So are they the best in this price range? So I don't have hands-on experience with every boot, as you can imagine. However, based on what I've looked at as far as styling, um, longevity, or perceived longevity, I think they probably are. I do have one other technically mock toe in this price range. That's the Parkhurst Niagara, but it doesn't have the classic sort of tall toe box design. It's more of the Alden Indy stitched in mock toe type look. That's a great boot as well, but not really in the same category, I think. That's an extremely good boot, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Other boots, I've never had a Thorogood, I've never had a Danner, but just looking at the styling, they don't quite have the same panache, I think. And I mean, tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I don't think they could be any more durable or made any better than these two. They could be equal, but I doubt they're better. And in my opinion, they don't look anywhere near as good. Cheaper priced alternatives like the Thursday Diplomat, while a fantastic boot for 199 bucks, uh, just not as good. I think not as good. The leather's not as cool, and unless you're looking for that really sleek toe box like the Diplomat gives you, I kind of learning that I'm preferring the taller toe box. So for me, these are the two best. Probably why I bought them. And for me, the Red Wing slightly edges out the whites. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I respond to everything. So that's all for today. Have a great one.